I'll do it.
This one's going down 565 over there.
Hi everybody, Yogi here. And in this episode we're going to be doing a special Ghosts and Gravestones Savannah Ghost Tour. Haven't been on this one, been in St. Augustine. St. Augustine was pretty cool. Haven't been on this one though, but Savannah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out. So on the special edition of Road Trips with Yogi, come along for the ride. Guaranteed to give you the fright of your life. I know, terrible pun, sorry. Savannah Ghosts and Gravestones Ghost Tour is coming up on this episode, folks. Stick around. Road Trips with Yogi starts now. Wisconsin. All right. Wisconsin.
Florida. Oh my goodness. All right.
We got the Packers.
Just like a severed head, we are.
Just like a severed
Now, it wouldn't be a real ghost tour if I didn't introduce you guys face to face with Savannah's most notorious murderer. Everyone say hi to Miss Terry.
Hi.
She laughs, but the bodies have never been found. Actually, look onto your left-hand side for me, folks. You can see the tail end of the Savannah River. Now, while it looks glassy, calm, and tranquil, don't let it deceive you. About a year passed by when at least a handful of unfortunate souls haven't lost their life by falling into her bloodthirsty and treacherous depths, sitting at about 47 feet deep at high tide. Usually the deaths they often happen around St. Patrick's Day. Can't imagine why. River Street, where we're traveling along now, is lined with shops, hotels, but in the not-so-distant past, this place used to be just as dangerous, if not more so, than the river itself. See, it used to be a place where cargo ships would come to unload their wares, and the sailors would spend time between their voyages. They were what made River Street a very unsafe place to be after dark, yet here we are. These places all used to be warehouses. We're actually going to pass by one on our right-hand side, which is now today known as the Old Harbor Inn. Here we can see it on our right-hand side. It was originally opened in 1890 as the Tidewater Oil Company. It was lined up to the absolute rafters with rich, flammable kerosene oil. And at the time, business was booming. Everyone was making a lot of money and everyone was pretty happy. Hank had a mean disposition and a temper to match. Day in and day out, he would complain to his fellow coworkers and his bosses, even straight to their faces, that he would like to get rid of their commands. One night he made this come true. He waited until sunset to creep into the attic of the Tidewater Oil Company, where, armed with a match, he set fire to a barrel of oil. And another, and another, and another, until the entire floor was set ablaze, then falling to the building in the entire east end of River Street, where we just traveled through. And with the buildings being so close together and so many people, you'd have to imagine that there were some casualties with this great fire, right? Actually, there was only one. Can y'all guess his name? Yes, poor, unhappy Hank. Well, he burned alive in his own inferno, where he makes his presence most known to guests on the 4th floor, particularly room 406, where he makes his presence most known to guests that are staying there in that room. Guests there often report that they'll wake up in the middle of the night to an alarm clock that they did set that's beeping them awake. And they'll start to smell something that's quite off. It's filling their lungs. It's smoke. There must be a fire. So they rush up into the door, grab a hot cloth because the handle is hot to the touch, open it up, and there's no sign of fire anywhere. Not even a plume of cigarette smoke or cigar smoke, even a vape from someone passing by. It's believed to still be Hank's spirit trying to smoke out his former bosses, but unfortunately he's still the only one being burned by it to this story of the pirate house that we're passing by. Notice how those windows are unoccupied, vacant. That's because no one wants to spend time up there at the second story of the pirate's house alone. Now, raise of hands, who here is familiar with the names Ed and Lorraine Warren? A couple of people, all right. Not too long ago, they actually took a trip here to Savannah, Georgia, and the place that they were the most interested in investigating was the pirate's house that we just passed. Well, upon arrival, he's sitting in the passenger seat. He looks up to the house and he sees three distinct silhouettes in the top story staring back down at him. And he's thinking to himself that if they started without him, and these are famous people, so he does not want to make a bad impression. So he's running up to the door and he opens it up and, well, standing downstairs right in front of him, Ed and Lorraine Warren are waiting very patiently. See, the only person who wasn't running late that night was also the pirate's house manager, who had the only key to the locked and forbidden upstairs. So who or what was standing in the top story that night, even up to this day, we still don't know. Soon we'll be joined by one of our lovely scare takers, and then we'll be led into the courtyard and then into the home. But while we're outside, go ahead and look at it. It's very, very gorgeous, and it is considered a masterpiece at the time that it was built. Actually, in the top left-hand corner, that window on the second story, that's actually the same window that the last owner of the home died in, Miss Juliet Gordon Lowe. Now, before we go inside, some quick history on the guy who actually owned the house himself, none other than Andrew Lowe. He first came here to Savannah as a young 17-year-old to work in his uncle's cotton factory business, where he eventually took it over and gained a lot of money for himself, so much so that he commissioned for this beautiful masterpiece of a house to stand behind us today. However, before the home could be finished with construction, a lot of tragedies befell his life. He lost his first wife, Sarah Cecil Hunter, as well as their 4-year-old son. And then 5 years later, whenever he decided to remarry, he lost his second wife too, Mary Cooper Stiles, soon after the birth of their 6th child. Now, it's for this reason he didn't want to spend a lot of time here and brought back bad memories. So he spent a lot of his time overseas. When he was gone, though, he entrusted the home to one man in particular. That man's name was Thomas A. Millage. Now, although he was born a slave, him and Andrew Lowe were very, very close friends. Even after slavery was abolished, he still resided in this home to make sure that it was well taken care of. Now, they were so close that in Andrew Lowe's will, he stipulated that should his servant die, well, he would gain $300 for every single year that he should live. In today's money, that's about $7,000, $8,000. Everyone, welcome to the Parlor Rooms of the Andrew Lowe Mansion. Now that side over there, that was known as the informal parlor room, joined with us by a very lovely portrait of Andrew Lowe's second wife, Mary Cooper Stiles. This side is known as the formal parlor room. You can tell a little bit of a difference in the decoration, which is joined by us by another portrait of the same lovely lady in the same lovely dress by a different artist. And a very handsome devil over that mantle over there, that is Andrew Lowe himself. Quite a dashing young gentleman, if you ask me. As I mentioned before, Andrew Lowe didn't like to spend a whole lot of time here, but when he did, he often secluded himself over to this room. However, it has no paranormal significance to it, so we're going to pass on right by it.
Yep.
And what are you doing in my warehouse? Do you see the signs on my door outside that said private, keep out, stay out? I swear none of y'all have respect for anything anymore. And besides that, it looks like the whole lot of y'all have no respect for anything anymore. Or ever worked a hard day in your entire life. Especially these three over here in the corner. But like that man right there in that picture, folks, that's Henry Wellington. Now you don't want to be in Henry's shoes. He's been dead for over 140 years. But yet he marches off to work every night. And that's only because anything he ever loved was taken away by that river outside. You'll see Henry's first love was said to be quite beautiful. Her name has been lost to time, but the story of her death still haunts the city to this very day. And Henry was very eager to impress this young lady. He invited her aboard a ship who lived running on his own time. And as the young couple walked across the deck of that ship, well, that young lady began to marvel at the craftsmanship of her young man. Well, she turned around to give Henry a loving embrace. She tripped over something, fell overboard, she plunged into that river. Henry, he tried to save her. He dove in after her, but he was too late because the river had already taken his beautiful young lady away forever. But have no fear. Henry would eventually get married. His first wife would die from the yellow fever, the devil's disease. His second wife would die from influenza. And Henry's misfortune wouldn't just affect his wives, it would spread to his children as well. And like most men back in his time, Henry buried himself in his work. And on late nights and the night hours, he would take off to shipyards to keep his nightmares at bay. You see, Henry's shipyards built war machines. And after the war between the states, Henry began to prepare his sons to take over his business and to take part in the family's legacy. Well, on an early May morning in 1866, Alexander, Henry's son, was making his way to work. As he neared the shipyard, he noticed a group of dock workers struggling with a heavy load on a crane. So he rushes over to help them. All of a sudden, one of the ropes on that crane gets caught in a pulley. So Alexander climbed up that crane, makes his way across the boom, and he tries to unfurl that rope from that pulley. As he's pulling on the rope, the load shifts. And Henry, from the deck below, watched in horror as the son tried to make it back to safety. But just when he thought he had made it, the load shifted again. Alexander fell to the ground, breaking his bones and shattering his skull. The young lad would live for 4 days on his deathbed before dying from that fatal fall. Now, when the people of Savannah hear those heavy footsteps in the warehouses here on the road and on those cobblestone streets outside, we all know to step aside. That's just Henry. He's making his way to work, and that's all that remains of a tragic life working on this road. Now, folks, I'm hired tonight. Who wants a job?
Josh does.
Who's Josh? You're hired till I fire you. Put up there, you bunch of drunk fools! Keep it moving! That's right, keep on singing and keep on walking, you bunch of degenerate rum heads. Now, folks, I'm sorry about that. But that's the sound of revolution, and that's the sounds of the Sons of Liberty. You see, the patrons around here, they were so angry by the so-called taxation without representation by the British Crown, they formed the Sons of Liberty. Soon after, protests broke out the streets, the squares, even down here on the shipyards. And those angry patriots, they would tar and feather the loyalists and even burn King George in effigy. Well, that left the governor no choice. He closed the ports here in Savannah, and that left the sailors nothing better to do but to drink rum and roam the streets all day and all night. I like that out there. How about y'all? Like the long day drink rum, they wanted to protest too. So the ringleader, well, he ran off, got a rickety old cart. Another ran off, got a mask of King George. Drugged those together. Built a set of gallows on this cart and tacked a three-legged stool to it. But hey, the fun don't stop there. With a promise of wine, women, and song, they coached young cowboy onto this cart, put that noose around his neck, and put his very mask on top of his head. And they paraded him up and down River Street here to the cheers of the sailors here in town. But by this time, well, that rum has run its course, and it was time for the boys to have another round. So they all took off to McHenry's cabin to get the boy on that cart, where he struggled to get the noose from around his neck. He got caught on the back of his mask and he fell off the stool. And that poor young cowboy began to slowly strangled to death. Well, due to the shenanigans of the so-called Sons of Liberty, many people walked by that cart and they did nothing to help the young boy hanging there. That's because they thought it was a dummy of King George just twisted in the wind. Now, some say the ghosts of those sailors still haunt Savannah today. And those sailors are doomed to relive that tragic night over and over again. Well, now I know in the afterlife, there's a very special place that's reserved for those so-called salty sailors. And what the devil? Well, he ain't serving up to rum either. Now, folks, y'all caught me at a bad time. I'm supposed to be working, not jacking my jaw for a lot of y'all. Excuse me while I go back to my work. I knew I smelled rain again. The storm's coming. It's not safe to be on this river on a night like tonight. Strange things happen. At my warehouse, I've seen a whole lot worse, folks. And you shall be safe here. So what do you say we ride the storm up with one last story? How about it? You want to hear it?
Yes.
Good, because you'll hear it anyway. Now, folks, what I'm about to tell you all suspicious disbelief. And I said it was an wise or superstition if it wasn't documented by your own federal government. And you can't always trust your government, right? Well, pay attention. The story I'm about to tell y'all could save y'all's lives. Let me ask all of y'all, who here has ever slept the sleep of the dead? Now, folks, you know what I'm talking about. Nights like tonight, you're laying in bed, you can't move a muscle, you can't even raise your arms, and yet your body feels strangely calm. But you wake up the very next morning completely exhausted, as if the life has been taken from your body. Now, this has happened to y'all. You have been ridden by a hag! And a hag is a witch that sustains her life by draining you of yours. But around these parts, the local Gullah Geechee folk have a certain type of hag. She's called a boo hag. And a boo hag is a very particular kind of witch. They say it's in the shape of a cat, the form of a shadow, or the mist falling down. But he also said a boo hag can sit upon your chest or ride your back. Either way, folks, the results are the same. You wake up the very next morning completely exhausted because the witch has sustained her life by draining you of yours. Now, during the Great Depression, a man named Clay worked at the docks here in Savannah, and his work suffered from a lack of sleep. His wife suffered sleepless nights as well, and she knew that they were hag-ridden. But to make matters far worse, Clay's wife knew the witch's name, and her name was Melinda Edmond. Well, Clay is thinking his wife is talking about nonsense and pure southern superstition. Until one morning, Clay goes down to the stables to collect his team of horses. Well, he's met by a stable master who tells him when he arrived that morning, all the horses and mules had night sweats and they had knots in their veins. These knots are known as hag stirrups. Indeed, it was a witch here in Savannah. But by now, Clay is scared for his life. So he takes off to Tent City, east of the city proper, to a shanty town, to consult with a conjure man, who says he can commune with the spirits because he was born with a veil over his face. Well, the conjure man gets Clay some very strange advice. To keep the witch at bay, place a broomstick across your door, tie a silver nickel around your wife's ankle, she would only bump beneath your pillow. But Clay don't keep no which way, he's wanting to catch her. He ignores all the advice he said the very last. But he also tends to sleep with an axe beside his bed at night. And one of those rainy, sleepless nights, he's laying in bed beside his wife. When Clay does up, and sees shadows moving across this bedroom wall. Well, he leaps out of bed, he grabs that axe, he goes to the shadows, he sees something, he takes it to the shadow! Right down the living room, to the door, out the night, into a driving rain! Clay goes to lay for paw prints and he finds footprints, and there the bush is the witch herself, Melinda Edmond! She's in the bushes wearing nothing more than what the good Lord gave her on the day of her birth. That's right, y'all. She was naked. Woohoo! And the naked boo hag is one ugly sight, folks. I can tell you that. My second ex-wife was one. She's in the bush. She's clutching her friend. Don't hit me anymore. I'll go away. Please don't hit me. I'll leave you all alone. Well, Clay, in a rare moment of kindness and chivalry, he lets her live. And she does indeed keep her word. She leaves town forever. And after that, well, all the horses and mules could have a night sweat. And we all started to get a good night's rest once. You know what I say about stories like that, folks? A lot of freaking dumb. I hate a happy ending. It was a perfectly good story for me. Now, folks, it seems that storm has finally passed and I got to get back to my work. I don't know how y'all found this way in here, but you sure can find your own way out. And evidently hearing is just good as your sight. Because you sure didn't pay attention to my sounds outside, and you didn't hear what I just told y'all to do. Get out!
Whoa. Oh. closer to home than some of us may imagine. The very roads that we're traveling over right now, the buildings over on the right-hand side, the Andrew Lowe house, the Perkins and Son Chips Channery, everything that's been restored to its former glory, forever unchanging. So it's going to be a lot closer to home than some of us really would like to admit. However, that was our last story of the evening, so I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your very busy schedules to come and join us for the evening here at Ghosts and Gravestones.
All right, everybody, that was the Ghosts and Graveyards Savannah Ghost Trolley Tour. Pretty cool. Highly recommend if you're in Savannah and you got some time to kill. Very, very cool. There's a nice moon out. Ooh, look at the moon here. Let's turn this around here. See the moon up there? Not by the light, but it's up there past all that beautiful Spanish moss. Again, I'd like to thank everybody, all of you who have watched my videos and have supported the channel. All my subscribers, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe, share. You can also go to www.patreon.com/roadtripswithyogi. It'll be listed below. And with a small donation, you can help support this channel and my adventures. So that's going to do it here from Savannah, Georgia. One of the bucket list items was coming to Savannah, Georgia. And here I am. So until the next one, folks, thanks again for watching, and I am out of here.